Hello, friends, and welcome to An Idol Called Food. I'm your host, JT Tapias, and in this podcast, we speak about things that edify the mind, the body, and the spirit. This podcast is sponsored by EYBPlantFuel.com, supplements that allow you to show up as the best version of yourself. Go to EYBPlantFuel.com and enter promo code PH413 at checkout and get a 10% discount on any of your orders. Guys, let's jump right into it. I live in Florida, and so it's not surprising to step outside of your house and find a gator in your driveway. It just happens pretty often in Florida. What's interesting is when you find a baby gator. I'm telling you, living in Florida is an adventure every day. And nothing quite compares like walking outside your house and spotting exactly that, a baby gator. This morning, my wife came in racing and screaming at the top of her lungs, urging me to come outside and see what was near her car. Of course, like the super dad and husband that I am, I naturally bolted out, prepared to confront any wild creature. But instead, I found myself with a mini gator. My immediate thought was, where are the parents? So I searched under the car, around the house, but nothing was around. So as I contemplated capturing this intriguing little creature, a memory from the night before surfaced. We had parked the car in the dark, and I recalled my daughters, one is 4 and one is 7, and the older one is fond of all things that are gentle and cute, while my younger one is all about danger. And it struck me that this gator might be one of Hannah's toys, my younger daughter. Upon closer inspection, I realized that we had been fretting over a plastic toy for the past 10 minutes. What appeared menacing enough to threaten our little chihuahua was simply Hannah's little toy. Sometimes the things we fear exist only in our imagination. This oftentimes happens in my coaching practice. Most people gain weight in the same way. We struggle with fears, with anxiety, with busyness, with constant preoccupation, fears of the present and the future. These overwhelming thoughts lead us to find an escape from our thoughts and our emotions. Unfortunately, that escape is usually found in alcohol, drugs, sex, chasing money, and anything that gives us a jolt of dopamine in the midst of our affliction. Most people, it isn't that obvious for most people, right? These vices are not the obvious vices or the more notable vices, but the innocent drug called food. This is the thing that we see that oftentimes gets people in trouble. I call it the innocent drug because most people don't see it as that. They don't see it as a drug. They just see it as, well, I need to eat in order to survive. The problem with this is that the progression with this vice is very noticeable around our waist. If we're not taking care of our bodies, we're eating lots of empty calories, and we're really not moving much, then of course that progression is pretty quick. This is when people generally resort to fad diets, all the different things that you've seen out there. And most people at one point or another have thought of the idea of changing the way they feel and look. And I'm sure that in the beginning it seemed exciting and they think, wow, I can actually change the way I look and feel by simply changing my lifestyle. But unfortunately, because there's so much stuff out there and a lot of the marketing is very gimmicky, maybe you've fallen prey to some of this gimmicky marketing. The detox that says that if you do the detox for X amount of days, that you're going to lose X amount of excess weight, and that if you actually time restrict and you do intermittent fasting, that's going to be the magic bullet. Maybe you were told that you can continue to eat your favorite foods while losing weight, but what you actually ended up finding was that you were deprived. Maybe you got on one of these crazy diets where you limited your calorie intake to maybe 500 or 700 calories. I've heard of such crazy diets, right? And maybe in the beginning you had some success, maybe you made some progress, you lost 10, 15, 20 pounds, but of course the weight came back on, and it came back on with a vengeance. These temporary fixes are band-aids on wounds that need stitches. And I know that if you're over the age of 25, you've probably already tried 5 or 7 diets. And most likely, if you're listening to this, you have fallen prey to a lot of this gimmicky marketing that is out there, and you haven't been successful. And now you're starting to realize that you're suffering from binge eating, emotional eating. You realize that you're addicted to food. Maybe you're 15 or 100 pounds overweight. I can tell you that the fad diet will never resolve your issue. And what's interesting about this dynamic is that most people feel like maybe they're flawed or they lack discipline. But instead of all those things that you may think are going on with you, or that you just came with a predisposition for being overweight, I want to challenge that idea. And I want to say that I don't believe you're lacking discipline or self-control, or that you're flawed in any way, shape, or form. I truly believe that 80% of people's challenges when it comes to weight has more to do with their psychology than anything else. The other 20% really speaks about mechanics. Eat this, don't eat that. So your next natural question is, well, how do I fix my psychology around nutrition? How do I think about food in a way that empowers me versus what I've been doing? And I'm glad you asked the question. I think I have 3 secrets that can radically change the way you view food. Now, this is not the end all do all, but this is a great start. I want you to think about this. Number 1, whenever you realize you're hungry, I want you to ask yourself the question, would I be able to eat a piece of chicken with broccoli and no sauce right now? If the answer is no, you're most likely emotionally hungry. Number 2, I believe that motion creates emotion. Most of us live sedentary lives. We sit at a desk for 6 or 8 hours a day. We're shallow breathers. Shallow breathing is one of the fastest ways to get depressed, suffer from anxiety, from fear. If you start walking every day, just walking at a normal pace, you don't even have to sweat for 45 minutes, your emotions will start to change, and consequently, your actions will as well. You start with the walk, and then all of a sudden that develops into having a little bit more self-control, being a little bit more cognizant of your food, and starting to limit some things that you know you should limit, but you really haven't figured out how to do that, right? When you get hungry, it's almost like you get blinded, and the next thing you know, you're reaching for things you know you shouldn't be eating. Number 3, if you're constantly looking for a dopamine hit, I would encourage you to get introspective and ask yourself the question, where is the void? Where is that void coming from? And how can I find a proactive and healthy way to channel that catabolic energy that is leading me to eat the things that I know I shouldn't be eating? I want you to think about it from this perspective. What if reaching for food, what if reaching for the things that you shouldn't be eating has more to do with an unsatisfied need, something that's going on inside, internally, that you haven't been able to fulfill? Maybe it's your career, maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's your parenting. Maybe you were overly stressed because you put too much on the plate, and now you are falling prey to the challenges, the friction, the adversity, and you are trying to fill that void with food. If that's the case, I'm not going to say it's easy, but once you become introspective and you figure that out, if you can start taking some of those things off of your plate, removing some of the unnecessary stress in your life, call it people, places, or things, what actually starts to happen is you actually start to create more mental bandwidth to deal with the stress, and you stop filling that void, that bucket, with food that you shouldn't be eating. So these are 3 things that can get you started on a path to changing the way you think about food, feel about food, act towards food. If you are doing that in an anabolic way, then what actually happens is that impacts your habits. And if your habits are good, it impacts your character. And then the rest is history, because things will happen effortlessly. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. More importantly, I hope you take action with it, right? These are very simple, straightforward ideas, but ideas that can get you to change the way you are currently doing life and channel that energy into something that is going to allow you to be healthy and strong and have vitality and creativity, and actually help you show up as the best version of yourself, which I believe that's what we're all intended to do. So I hope you enjoyed this. My name is JT Tappas. I'm the founder of the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan. And this is exactly what we help people with inside of our program. We say that 80% of our process is working through the relationship to food, and 20% is the easy part. Those are the mechanics. Eat this, don't eat that. We do that in 6 weeks, 90-day transformation programs. And we have a 99% success rate, meaning people not only lose weight, but they keep it off. If you're interested, go to EYBplan.com, or you can go to our website at emptyyourbucketplan.com. Get more information. I'd love to jump on a discovery call with you and see what the possibilities are. Thank you so much for listening. My name is JT Tapias. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao, ciao.